Hey, what's up everybody? It's your boy Hugh here from Creator Up. Today we are talking about how to add motion to cinematic VR experience, both 3DoF and 6DoF, that eliminate motion sickness and enhance the immersion. As you see right here, I'm watching my cinematic production on the Positron Voyager motion chair. In cinematic VR, the motion should feel more like music and sound design that should complement the story but not causing the attention of itself. Motion is another vital sensor input in VR that adds another dimension to the storytelling. In this video, we will interview the CEO of Positron and explore how Voyager motion chair can accomplish all that, and even Steven Spielberg enjoyed that unique experience. To better show you the impact of motion in storytelling, we have our VR creator Kitty try it. It is her first time, and we asked her thought afterward about the experience.
So Keely, tell us what's your experience? What was the first piece you saw here?
The first piece I was flying in the air. I don't remember the name of the
Take
piece.
Flight. Yeah,
Take Flight.
Right.
It was so beautiful to feel like I was actually flying.
Right.
I've never experienced that before. Maybe in a lucid dream that I forgot about, but that was the first experience that I've ever had a feeling of actual like flying, only me. Outside of a plane.
Very cool.
That was a really cool experience, and to see the people flying in the air and floating in the air, it was beautiful, and the sound was phenomenal.
Very cool. And then we watched Into the Now, a documentary from Michael Moeller about fear and about facing your fears and going with sharks. Tell me, like, what it was like your experience.
I have to say, like, I've almost cried, like, because the emotion that I felt, his connection to nature, I felt that connection myself, and I was astounded, like, oh my God, this is what I want to do, because I'm a VR creator as well. So,
very cool.
You know, that seeing the capability of this chair and feeling it, just made me so excited.
Very cool. Yeah. And you knew this was a motion chair going in. Tell me about what you were expecting versus what you felt once you were in there.
What I thought, I didn't know what to expect. I've never had this experience before, but when I was in the experience, I loved it so much because I didn't feel the motion sickness that you get when you are just watching it with a headset. When you're in motion in your mind, and your body's not following that motion. So I know that feeling of that motion sickness, and I didn't feel that at all with the chair. So I was really impressed with that.
Very cool. Yeah, the last two you saw were 6DoF, How to Train Your Dragon, and Take Flight, or First Man. Sorry, any comments on those?
Well, with the dragon piece, I thought that I felt like a roller coaster ride in a way, and it was so much fun, and to see the 3D elements, and it's sci-fi world, so to speak. That was really cool to experience.
Very cool.
And then to land on the moon, kind of feel what it was like to land on the moon. It was really fun.
Very cool.
Me. Yeah.
Now you're a creator yourself, and you're thinking, you're looking at some VR films. How does thinking about seated VR or motions influence maybe the way you're thinking about storytelling?
So, the empathy piece to me is very important. To put someone else in someone else's shoes, I think, is a very powerful way to evoke change within the world. And so I'm really excited about that piece, As far as the shark piece, I really felt like I was right there with him, and it was the real feeling that I felt from watching that piece. And as for me, I'm really excited to have that experience on an audience of something captivating. And to inspire change, I think is really powerful.
Very cool. Excellent. So I'm Jeffrey Travis, founder and CEO of Positron. Right now we're in our office in downtown Los Angeles. This is one of our demo chairs of the Positron Voyager chair. A little about me, my background is I was a filmmaker, director, did a number of traditional films in animation and live action. Also studied electrical engineering, so I've always had this dual interest in technology and storytelling. And when I finished directing my first VR film, I found that the experience, although it was okay, seemed to be lacking something that the audience needed, which was a personal space to feel comfortable and be told the story in. And so my co-founder and I began noodling on this idea of creating a chair that could have motion and really provide a premium way to watch that content. And so we created the first prototype late 2016, was invited as an artist to Sundance 2017 to showcase the chair. Universal Studios had seen it and said, hey, we just shot this 360 video with Tom Cruise, behind the scenes vignette with the Mummy experience. And Tom personally shot it. He took his camera up there, I think it was a GoPro rig, and said, perfect, we want 20 of these chairs. And that kind of helped launch the business because they realized that this was, so we opened the world's first motion VR cinema at South by Southwest in 2017. And since then, these chairs have really gone all over the world, from Russia to Saudi Arabia to Europe to South America to Asia. And as we're exploring how to, in this pandemic, still continue to grow that network, we're excited to see the creators embracing this platform.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about how you attract non-traditional audience to try VR.
Yeah, great question. So for us, really, we want VR to be a wonderful, delightful experience for all audiences. And there's a bigger demographic, we think, that would really enjoy VR storytelling if they could access it or not be intimidated by it. A lot of times, people's experience of VR is either, if they don't have a home headset, is some kind of game where you're strapping on all this gear and you're hunting zombies. And for gamers, that's great, but we think there's a much wider audience that just would enjoy sitting back and having a great story told to them in VR. And so part of the design with this chair was to create VR cinemas that feel a little bit familiar. Like I can go sit in a chair and put a headset on. VR has had a lot of presence in the game world, and a lot of the content is driven through gamers, and nothing wrong with that. My background is as a filmmaker, so I'm more interested in storytelling and the idea of VR film, cinematic VR. And we really want to make these pieces of content accessible to that very wide audience. One of the things that we noticed when we were setting up VR cinemas, like the one we had in London at the Saatchi Gallery, was some of the people that were coming in when they're 70s, 80s, families with kids. And what was really surprising, maybe it shouldn't have been, is the vast majority of them had never even done VR. They weren't familiar with it. They probably would not have gone to do say a room scale VR game, but they were very comfortable hopping in a chair and seeing this, and then seeing them come out excited about the content, or sometimes with tears in their eyes. It was very gratifying because you get to see there is this bigger audience that is ready to connect with these stories, and that's kind of who we're targeting. And it's why we want to not only focus on our chair, but really focus on distribution, finding ways to bring the content from creators and to audiences, helping creators monetize it so they can keep making content, and also offering our audiences these delightful experiences they may not otherwise encounter.
Tell us about motion sickness. Is VR is the biggest problem with motion sickness?
Yeah.
How chair can mitigate.
Motion sickness is definitely an issue. It continues to be an issue in VR. There's studies that show, depending on what you read, between 20 and 30% of people will experience motion sickness. And I think that's a real joy killer, right? Obviously, of being able to see content. So one of the things our chair does, and we've demonstrated this after having hundreds of thousands of people in it, is it virtually eliminates all motion sickness. We did our own study where 1,000 people came in the chair. We had 2 people say that they felt nauseous, so that's 0.2% compared to 20 to 30%. So we're excited about that. And in terms of how that motion sickness is eliminated, there's a lot of studies on what they call the coherence between what your eyes are seeing and what your proprioceptors, your inner ear, is feeling. So when you see a little bit of motion inside a VR experience, when your body doesn't feel it, there's a lack of coherence in your brain. That can trigger nausea. There's other ways nausea can be triggered as well, but that's one of them. And so it turns out that just having even a tiny bit of motion at the beginning of an experience is enough to trigger your proprioceptors and able to create that sense of coherence with what you're seeing visually. So we've had people who have seen an experience outside of the chair, said, oh, it made me sick. then they were surprised to see that same experience in the chair and they felt fine. And that's one of the things that I think will help audiences discover more content when they're not afraid that they're going to get nauseous.
So tell us a little bit about the design of the chair. Like where's the haptic? Like where is this touching to the body?
Sure, yeah. So the haptic feedback's through a sub-pack that's inside of the pillows.
You say sub-pack?
It's a sub-pack. Yeah, made by sub-pack. That's right. It's inside the pillow. One of the goals with design of the chair is that we really want to hide all the technology. The philosophy is the idea that we want the chair to be inviting and to lose yourself in the story and not to let audiences worry or focus or even have anxiety about the technology. And so as much as possible, like for example, the base actually has a lot of high-end systems, high-end electronics, motors, a PC with a 2080 GPU, kind of everything that's needed to run high-end VR is in the base. A 2080, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and the chair itself has unlimited rotation, what we call yaw, 360 degrees, as well as pitch, about 45 degrees of leaning back and forth. And with those 2 degrees of freedom or axes, we're actually able to simulate moving in other directions. So what's called heave up and down, or sway, or thrust going forward. A lot of 6 DOF or 6 degrees of freedom motion chairs are available on the market, but they're very limited in the amount of motion they can do. And what we find is that with our unlimited rotation, we just are able to give a lot more creative options to the storytelling. The motion is also, the design philosophy on this was very different than, say, trying to create a roller coaster simulator, a thrill ride. Our idea is that the motion should feel more like music or sound design that complements the story and doesn't call attention to itself. And so the idea is to use motion as another sensory input that adds another dimension or track to the storytelling. So it's really important, and that, for example, we don't hear any sounds. You can't hear the motors, you can't hear anything. I was fortunate to meet Steven Spielberg, who sat in our chair and watched Jurassic World VR piece. And his first comment out of that was like, I couldn't hear any motors, I couldn't hear any motion. And how did you guys do that? So we took that as a really big compliment, because there's a lot of engineering going into that not becoming a distraction, right? And then of course, we've designed the chair to be very comfortable. We've purposely made it so that your feet are lifted off the ground. That really kind of helps create that sensation of zero gravity or floating. And what we found is it's about letting the audiences relax. The more relaxed they are at the beginning of the experience, the more they can lose themselves in the story. And I think for creators and filmmakers, that's kind of the goal, right? Is to let your audience be enraptured by the story and not have any external distractions, which is challenging with VR because you're putting something on your face, you have wires around you, and a lot of environments where cinematic VR is shown, there's people around you, you're sort of aware of your environment. So part of the design for this was to create this cocoon or pod where you can feel like you're retreating into your own personal space, your own personal VR theater.
Okay, now let's get to the motion. So you mentioned about this chair can help you feel like you're flying or in the water, but the chair doesn't actually go up and down.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it's interesting because here from the outside, you're probably seeing the chairs moving very slowly, apparently. There's not a lot from the outside going on. You should ask Keely when she gets out how she felt about the motion, because what we've discovered, and we had a PhD neuroscientist as part of our design team, we really studied the perceptual components of motion, the proprioception, and essentially the psychosomatic components of this. And what we've discovered is that the right kind of very smooth motion coupled with camera moves has a very powerful multiplying effect. So, for example, if we tilt the chair just a little bit slightly back as the camera starts to go up, you really have that sensation of floating. And the other thing we have discovered, and as part of our patented system, is that by having unlimited rotation yaw, we're creating a very slight but perceptible centrifugal force on your body. And that centrifugal force, although without any context or visuals, you would just, you would feel like you're rotating. It turns out that by introducing other types of camera moves, your brain will translate that bodily sensation into whatever the motion of the camera move is. And that's what's unique about this, because other motion simulators can't sustain, they have sort of a range of limit of how far it can move. So having the unlimited yaw gives a lot more freedom in terms of the sensation of flying, moving, floating. And it's one of the things you have to experience for yourself. We can describe it, but that's one of the things that's exciting for me, is to always see that look of excitement and joy on people's faces as they get off.
Nice. So from a filmmaker perspective, because it sounds like there's some kind of technical thing that a DP or director need to know what the chair can do so they can direct correctly.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so when we have worked with creators or creators work this platform, one of the things that we always tell them is like, think of this as a cinematography device where you're able to, after you've shot your film, able to pan or tilt, right? And you're able to actually physically force that. And so one of the things that we talk about is like, remember that whatever you're shooting in 360, you can actually turn the chair to guide viewers. You don't necessarily have to accommodate your canvas or what you're shooting to always sort of be in that front range of what you're looking at. And then the second way that creators should think about this is to create that sensation of motion as an enhancer of the story. So if the story of the shot should make you feel like you're floating or flying, the motion can achieve that. But it also can achieve things like, I want to take you away from this scene and slowly guide you over here. The same way traditional 2D film, there's a film cinematography or grammar or even an emotional component to that pan. We can now do that in VR. So the yaw on this system is actually infinite in terms of range, right? It can rotate indefinitely in either direction. It's like 30 degrees a second, the maximum speed. Pitch, we have 42 degrees of range. And same thing, it's about 30 degrees a second in terms of speed. We find that between those two things, it's more than sufficient to simulate everything from a gentle floating underwater to, we actually worked on First Man, the VR experience, simulate the takeoff of the Apollo 11. Okay, so I can show it to you here, and you'll see our chair shake pretty violently, to simulate what it's like in that first stage of the rocket boosters taking off. One thing I should mention in terms of the creator's technical specs, we do support Unity and Unreal experiences. We have an SDK available, which is how you get your content integrated in the chair. And then for 360 creators, it's a pretty simple process. The motion tracks are files that live outside of, obviously, your MP4 file. And we have now a visual tool that we developed in collaboration with Liquid Cinema called Motion X. So you're familiar with Liquid Cinema? Yeah. There's now a plugin available that we provide that lets you import your 360 video, and on a timeline, you're able to set your motion curves, and you're actually able to visualize, even if you don't have the chair, what's in that field of view. One thing I didn't mention is this chair doesn't have it, but our newer models have scent. We have scent units. So now you can have up to 6 different smells that can be triggered. It's not on this one, yeah. We need to, we're gonna be adding it because we sold all our units that had scent. Okay. They're very, very, very high demand. But the scent tracks, they're not always appropriate for every kind of content, but used properly, they can be very powerful. So the motion that goes straight to your cerebellum, you're able to trigger the scents on and off and at different intensities throughout the experience. We work with a Japanese company called AromaJoin, who makes the technology for these scent dispensers. And we're starting to see that being used more, which is exciting.
Okay, so let's talk about Sixth Off right now. So what is she watching?
Sure. So right now, Keely is watching the How to Train Your Dragon, the Virtual World Tour, which is a Sixth Off experience created in Unity. It was a partnership between DreamWorks Animation and Walmart, their company Spatialand, and Positron to create an experience based on the franchise of How to Train Your Dragon. And she's essentially going into the world of these dragons with some of the characters from the film, flying on one of them. And the reason, sometimes people are surprised that we have Sixth Off content on a seated platform motion chair. And where Sixth Off matters, I think, is not only for walking, but it just gives you that extra layer of the immersion, right? So when you have Sixth Off content, even if you're seated, you might look in to look at something, or you get that parallax of how the images change. It's subtle, but it makes a big difference in terms of the level of immersion. The motion here is going to be a little more, I guess, upbeat or exciting because it's about flying.
Side question. So, as a director, like, how can we utilize your system, your chair, to visualize what the set would look like to give production budget? Because there's a trend right now in virtual production, like how director can, without using a real actor, building real set, everything is unreal. Maybe using a chair to watch it to see the experience instead of before filming.
That's right. Yeah. It's something we've been looking at, and we want to be able to develop this virtual production tool. So you as the director can sit in the director's chair, and then using a controller hand gestures, essentially fly around your set, experiment with different types of takes, camera moves. But it gives you an ability to much more quickly move without having to have tangled cables, able to recreate and loop shots, and then even be able, in a way to record something that you're experimenting with while seated in the chair.
So users can actually take control of the motion of the chair.
That's right. And normally we don't do that. Normally the audiences are just watching and the motion is pre-programmed. But we do have a mode in beta right now where it's user-controlled motion, where you can decide, and even head-tracked motion. So I can turn my head and there's a dead band, but it'll turn the chair over here, or I can use controllers to do that. And that takes a little more getting used to. Like we haven't rolled that out for the most part because a lot of audiences would probably get a little bit lost or overwhelmed, or it's one more thing for them to worry about. But I think for a director or creator, it is kind of the perfect way for them to move throughout their virtual set.
Nice. Now let's slide into talk about distribution. How can you help creator combine with what they create with the chair and the distribution?
Yeah. So we're always looking for great content as we build out our chairs and we start putting them in places in the world. We're really looking to build a distribution network, and in that distribution network, we're looking for content that can be taken to audiences. So if you're a creator, we definitely want to talk to you, hear from you. We have tools to help integrate your content to the chair, and then our distribution model is pretty simple. We do a rev share split from ticket sales and location-based entertainment. And we're starting to explore some other models right now of having a digital hub or digital channel too to find the content. We were recently involved with the Cannes XR Film Festival, and we sponsored an award for the best cinematic VR film. And so we had 6 finalists that were shown in a virtual space at Cannes. And we're talking to these filmmakers now about showcasing and continuing to distribute their content. Positron is headquartered in Los Angeles. Our website is gopositron.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, gopositron. And we have chairs, of course, right now during the pandemic. Most of these locations are shut down, but we had a VR cinema at the Saatchi Gallery in London. We have a chair in New York, LA. We'll be opening a VR cinema hopefully at the end of the year in Melbourne, Australia. There's some chairs now going to Taiwan and China. And then we have some other locations on the East Coast as well. So,
what is the financial model for people who actually bought a chair or rent a chair? Mm-hmm. They pay per time. How much usually you generate? Do you have any data to share?
So we have a case study where, for example, the VR cinemas that are ticketed locations, each chair was generating about $10,000 a month in gross ticket revenues. So it's very successful in terms of, because it's a premium experience. Now, obviously, that involves a lot of assumptions where people are paying $20 for a ticket. It's about a 7 to 15 minute experience. But what we're finding is that this is a proven business model that works for creators as well as locations, because the chair offers a premium experience that people are willing to pay a lot more for as a ticketed experience. And everyone so far at Cinema feels like it's they would come back again. They would tell their friends and family about it. So that's our hope, is that we provide this viable model for creators to monetize their content at a way that makes sense and can help fund future productions.